It's been nearly 2 years since The Last Jedi's release, and Star Wars fans are still debating its merits. While writer-director Rian Johnson may have made some bold creative choices, some fans just aren't over The Last Jedi's portrayal of Luke Skywalker. In fact, many are still huddled up in the fetal position, attempting to come to terms with their favorite hero being turned into a grumpy Gus. But what if we were to tell you that there's a new theory making the rounds on the internets, and that this theory might just explain some of Luke's more questionable decisions in the film? What if Rian Johnson M. Night Shyamalan'd us and Luke was really a ghost the entire movie? Think we're crazy? Oh, undoubtedly. But let's dig deeper and find out just how crazy we are, shall we? This brand spanking new theory comes courtesy of none other than the wonderful world of Reddit. Specifically, we have Reddit user 27 Swing at a Drive to thank for this one. They posit that Luke met his demise long before the events of The Last Jedi, suggesting it happened during his time at the Jedi Academy. But as we all know, all was not well with Luke's little Jedi school for gifted youngsters. For you see, another Jedi was made in the lands of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom. Oh, sorry, wrong franchise. Look, we're talking about Kylo Ren here, or as he was originally dubbed by his mom and pop, Ben Solo. Luke sensed the anger building up within young Ben and feared what the brooding young man and his perfectly coiffed hairdo could become. This led to an inevitable confrontation between teacher and student. The result was the terrible destruction of the Jedi Academy and the loss of Luke's other students. But what this Reddit user suggests is that Luke never made it out of the Jedi Academy alive either. Kylo Ren's wrath was not restrained, and Luke ended up meeting his end there as well. He has since wandered some otherworldly plane of existence. Not alive in any sense, but not a Force ghost in the way we've come to understand them either. If you recall, Luke never learned how to become a Force ghost. There's an art to it, you see. A secret method only the most studied Jedi like Qui-Gon Jinn understand. Lucky for you, dear viewer, we know all about the art of Force ghosting here at ScreenRant. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda never showed Luke the mystical ways of Force ghosting oneself. As a result, he was doomed to wander this alternate reality, neither fully alive nor fully a ghost. He was trapped in a kind of state of limbo at the site of the original Jedi Temple. Who knows what kinds of crazy nonsense is possible in a place like that? The only thing he could really do was project himself into other people's minds. That's what happens to Rey when she comes to Luke's island to seek him out and convince him to join the cause. Think about it. She comes in contact with Luke's lightsaber, and that suddenly unlocks all kinds of crazy visions in Rey's head. Maybe that triggered some kind of connection between her and Luke. This allowed him to project himself into her mind and explains how they can interact with one another despite his being a creepy ghost. In some ways, this theory justifies how Luke could just totally disappear and separate himself from all the horrible things happening with the First Order. In other ways, it doesn't really make sense. After all, he still interacts with Chewbacca, right? He has a heart-to-heart moment with R2-D2 in the Millennium Falcon. He even interacts with that weird green milk-producing space cow. Can you even call this thing a cow? What exactly is this supposed to be? Is there a name for it? Why does Luke look so defiant when he drinks this stuff? So many questions, so little time. Even though Luke asks Chewie what he's doing on the island, we don't see any actual exchanges between the two of them. Chewie just roars in Luke's general direction. So rude. But what about the R2 conversation, you say? Well, maybe R2 is able to see and interact with Luke because he was with Luke when Luke died all those years ago. They've always had a strong bond. Maybe there's a part of Luke's spirit that's always been with R2. Aw, isn't that sweet? As for that super weird space cow thing, yeah, we've got no answers for that one. Help us understand what it even is in the comments below. Another one of the big issues about this theory is that it goes against the way Luke behaves throughout the entirety of The Last Jedi. He's confident in his grumpy, curmudgeonly ways. He's not confused in the slightest about what's going on. He's very specific and explicit about what he's done and why he's chosen to isolate himself from the rest of the group. Okay, so maybe you're right. Maybe this theory is totally crazy, but we here at ScreenRant are a big fan of crazy. Besides, if you look at it from a certain point of view, this theory could explain why Luke was so mysteriously absent as terrible things were happening in the galaxy. This is something fans have struggled with since The Last Jedi was released. How could Luke, the paragon for all that is good and noble in this galaxy, just outright abandon everyone? Luke's being a wandering ghost trapped in a surreal realm does offer a stronger justification for why Luke couldn't arrive in time to save his best bud Han from a terrible demise at the hands of his own son. It also explains why he left Snoke alone and let the First Order rise to power. Because look, people, as much as we might like The Last Jedi, it's hard to believe Luke would abandon everyone he's known and loved. It's meeting Rey that changes everything for Luke. Somehow, she's able to tap into his mind. She's able to remind him what it is that he's missing. He rediscovers who he is, and as a result is able to force project himself on the planet Crate and save the Resistance from being totally wiped out. Then, having found himself and fulfilled his noble duty, he's finally able to become one with the Force and pull the whole disappearing act. Now, for those of you out there who are staring at whatever screen you're watching this video on and thinking to yourself, they can't be serious, just you wait. We are so serious. Here's what we think this could mean for the rise of Skywalker and the future of the Star Wars saga. Force ghosts have always played a huge part in the events of the Star Wars universe. You have Obi-Wan Kenobi instructing Luke in The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi even after Darth Vader chops him into oblivion. Yoda, not wanting to be left out to dry, shows up in The Last Jedi to offer Luke some much-needed guidance. We already know Mark Hamill is coming back in some capacity in The Rise of Skywalker. Perhaps by officially becoming a Force ghost, he will finally resemble the Luke Skywalker we've come to know and love in the original trilogy. Not gonna lie, if J.J. Abrams and company decide to go in this direction, it would be a really satisfying conclusion to Luke's story. But as awesome as all of this sounds, we're not sure it meshes with Rian Johnson's vision for Luke in The Last Jedi. Though it may be controversial, Johnson took Luke's character in a fascinating and exciting new direction. By showing us Luke at his lowest point, Johnson is able to provide audiences with a carefully crafted character arc that offers the character some sorely needed redemption. It's also an important lesson for anyone to learn. Sometimes your heroes are only human. For all Luke's heroics in the original trilogy, he was capable of error just like any of us. It's what makes him such an engaging, lovable character. The measure of a hero isn't just how they handle a situation when everything is going right, it's how they pick themselves back up after a crushing defeat. I think Rocky Balboa says that, and that guy knows what he's talking about. The theory that Luke was just a confused space ghost, not even coast to coast, that's a little Space Ghost reference for all you lovers out there, robs The Last Jedi of much of its emotional impact and effectiveness. Johnson took a big risk by showing us this version of Luke. It's a version that goes against the grain of what we would have expected. And while there are fans out there who are still lamenting the death of their childhood as a result, you have to give Johnson credit for making such a bold and intriguing move with the character and story. To suggest Luke was already dead Sixth Sense style doesn't do The Last Jedi any favors. But enough about why this theory doesn't work. Let's take a look at what this theory means for Luke's character in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. We've got a few ideas we want to throw your way about this. What if the film's title suggests a literal rise from the grave for Luke? Like, the Skywalkers have been so pivotal to everything that happens in this saga, and writer-director J.J. Abrams has suggested that this film will serve as a conclusion to said saga. What if, somehow, Luke has found a way to transcend the grave? Sure, the title might not refer to a literal rise, but again, we wouldn't put it past the creative team to do something totally bonkers with this big finale. If Luke has indeed been a ghost in both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, the implications suggest there's more to this whole life and afterlife thing than even the Force can provide all the answers for. Besides, the return of Emperor Palpatine has already been teased. If the dark side can rise from the grave, why not the light side too? There's a solid chance this could play a huge part in the rise of Skywalker. Luke's new knowledge as a result of being a ghost could give him a significant advantage. And while we can easily expect him to pass some vital information and advice on to Rey, how interesting would it be if this theory does prove to be true? Perhaps Luke will come back with some new mastery of the Force. He can teach Rey all about his super cool Force skills, and she can use that knowledge to defeat Kylo Ren, the Emperor, and the dark side of the Force all in one swift stroke. Not too shabby, right? Regardless of the manner of his return, there is no doubt about it. Luke Skywalker is coming back, baby. Though the how of his return might still be in question, we can still get excited about his returning in some capacity, right? Regardless of whether or not Luke was a ghost in The Last Jedi, he has finally managed to come to terms with who he is, and he seems at peace. And now that he's gotten his little temper tantrum out of the way, maybe we'll get a chance to see him be the Jedi Master we all know and love. One can only hope, right? Or should we say, one can only new hope. You see? You see what we did there? We'll just let ourselves out. Alright, we've said everything we have to say about Luke being a ghost in The Last Jedi. Now it's your turn, Screen Ranters. What do you think? Does Luke being a ghost explain his behavior in this new trilogy? Does the theory make any sense, or does it seem like a desperate attempt to justify Luke's character? Let us know in the comments below. And hey, make sure to click that subscribe button too.